Hello and welcome to the fifth devlog. In this video I'm going to talk about how I have greatly improved the map generation. The maps are randomly generated, and if for the location of things like terrain and vegetation is fine, for buildings and enemy spawn is not. I wanted the location of buildings to be such that they create clusters that make logical sense. Game Maker 2 doesn't offer a system to create prefab, so I had to use the engine as best as I could. As I explained in a previous video, I used the surface. These surfaces were colored with a color, and each color represented by a different object of our building. As you can see, trying to build a prefab using only pixel as a reference is not very easy, and you can easily lose the sense of what you are doing. For small prefab it may be okay, but for what I had in mind is not. My first idea was to create an editor within the game, so I could be precise and not go crazy trying to figure out what I created if I need to edit it in the future. But then I realized that I would have to spend a lot of time coding it, so I looked for a way to use the one already in Game Maker. I create a new room, fill it with the object I want and start the game. There is a very useful function called show debug message that allows me to write what I want in the engine console. For each building, enemy and object, I just need to use the algorithm that I've coded that makes the engine write in the console the same lines of code that I would use if I had to do it manually. I'll try to explain it better now. Let's start for example with walls and fences. I have created a different types of object that correspond to a different type of wall that is saved in the variable fence. This variable contains which tileset I'm going to use to draw it in the game, because for example a camp will have wooden walls, while for a factory I will use metal fences. To draw tileset I need to get the coordinate of the cell it will occupy. So I divide the coordinate of my object by the size of the cell of my tileset. Now, through the function showDebug message, I'm going to write which tileset I have to use and which cell. These values are saved in a grid that then the auto-tiling will draw it when I create the map. A similar process must be done for each different type of tileset I have. So for example, tileset for road, railroad, water and so on. Manually creating prefab using the tileset I want allows me to create much more complex thing. If I had to do it by auto-tiling, it would be too complicated. Take a look at the layout for the industrial zone for example. I can create a mold for the map, so that the map is a little more complex. So for each tileset I use in the editor, I save which cell and in which position I use it. Then I write in the console the function tilemapSet, that is the function that GameMaker 2 uses to create the tileset. For all the objects such as building, trees and so on, each one has a different ID, so I have to save this ID and write in the console a function that the game will use to create the object. Once the algorithm has finished iterating each object and tileset, I just need to copy what it has written in the console and paste it into a function. Next, I just tell to each map which functions to use to create the prefab. For example, in the map forest there will be a sawmill and bandit camps. In the industrial area there will be factories. For each different type of prefab, I can create a list of different functions so that the prefab is not always the same. These you are seeing are examples of what I can create using the editor. In the end I'm very happy because I was able to get a good result without spending time creating my own editor. I also made another big improvement for gameplay in general. I implemented the possibility to enter buildings. The way they are created is the same for the prefab I just told you about. So what I have to do is just create them in the editor, have the algorithm work, copy the text and paste it into a function. I couldn't get the buildings and their interiors to be in the same location, because that would have been too complicated for me to code. So I decided to put them on the outside of the map. When you enter a building, you will be teleported to the corresponding interior. In the end, it turned out to be the right choice, because I have no space limitation and I can create what I want. But here I had to face another problem. Every interior of the building must be furnished. No one wants to go into an empty building, so I had to spend a lot of time creating the pixel art I needed, and I'm just at the beginning, because for now I've made just a few different buildings. I still need a lot of time to draw all the maps, buildings and interiors. These are some examples of interiors. Again, for each building I'm going to create different interiors, so it doesn't look repetitive. Almost all the building types have different sprites, so I have to create the building entrance based on the sprite. I'm having some problem getting it to work, but we'll fix that in the future. In the end, there is still a lot to improve, but slowly I'm going to refine it. That's it for the video. Next video I'm going to explain how we created the enemy AI. Thanks for watching.